Welcome to the TechFace podcast. We at TechFace are all about connecting female tech communities with companies to support their members finding a meaningful career in tech. In this podcast, we interview women who have a career in tech to inspire your own journey. Let's listen to our next guest on this episode. Today, I am welcoming Sara Wick. Sara and we have met long time ago through different events in the area of women in tech, but also through a common friend. I'm happy to have you today on the podcast, and please introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Sara Wick. If I speak English, usually I say Sara. My background actually is I studied English because I love languages, and I slipped into the tech world. Yeah, now I'm here and I like it.
So you said you slipped into the tech world. How did that happen?
Yeah, exactly. So as I said, I studied in my bachelor's English and media and communication. I wasn't super happy with media and communication. One day in my lecture, they introduced me to a master's program called multilingual text analysis, which I thought sounded interesting. So I gave it a go, and basically, it's computational linguistics with a multilingual focus. So anything that has to do with language and technology, machine translation is a perfect example. All these smart assistants, if you speak to your phone, Alexa or whatever, exactly. There's a lot of computational linguistics in the background. So I had to take programming lessons or classes. I learned to program in Python. I'm not the best programmer, but I understand the principles, I would say. So it was more of a happy accident, because actually I started studying English, or I studied English because I love languages and because I'm not a huge fan of math. And and that did not turn out well. My plan did not turn out well, because first of all, also in English, you have to do a lot of math. And now in the tech world, it is mathy.
But still, I mean, it's amazing for me to see when you were able to bring your passion for languages and translate it into something that is related to tech, which I believe a lot of people are not aware that there is this specific area of computational language.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was then your first job you did after your studies?
The first job I did was I worked for Swiss Cognitive, which is an AI platform. And there I didn't do anything with languages, but I was responsible for social media on one hand, and they organized a lot of events. So I was responsible for picking out speakers, understanding what sort of project did they have in AI. Did it make sense for our platform or not? Was it quote unquote real AI, or was it just fancy statistics? So I needed to be able to understand what all of this AI, machine learning and neural networks are, and to be able to assess a certain project and make sure that it actually is what we want to have on our stage.
So that means you still had to learn a lot while you were working about AI and NLP.
Yeah, I did have to learn a lot, but I mean, during my studies, during my master's thesis, I actually did something with machine learning, so I knew most of the theoretical part, but it's just more of it's different if you do it in theory than if you do it in the real world with business implications. It's different, exactly.
Yeah. But now you're working in a different area. Tell us a little bit about your current role.
Exactly. Now I work for Turicode, which is a tech startup. And here we are around 15 people, and 12 of those are software engineers. And so I'm one of 3 who does the rest, which is involved in a business. And mostly I do sales and project management. So it involves a lot of talking to people on finding out what is their problem, what is their current situation, and how can we as Turicode improve it. And there again, it is a lot of understanding what can our technology actually do, what does the customer need, and then finding a bridge between the two situations.
And I hear that's already, I guess, one of the reasons why you chose this position. So why you were venturing out then from Swiss Cognitive to Turicom. Or was there any other reason that you said, oh, you want to go more into really a tech startup or the tech companies?
Yeah, I was, I love the bridging between the technology world and the business world. That's something I really enjoy. And I wanted to dive more into that and get away from social media. I mean, it's interesting to do, but it's not something that makes me jump out of bed in the morning. And I wanted a job that excites me.
What was your approach then when you were looking, when you came to the conclusion, yeah, social media is not quite what excites me. I want to go more into tech. What was your approach?
I applied to basically any position that I fit halfway. So I also applied for example, at the Fabritet, the public transport in Zurich. They needed a digital strategy leader, something like that. And I applied knowing that I would not get it. But I mean, I had super interesting conversations because they were curious why a woman of 28 years would apply for a position. I'm sure they had someone with at least, I don't know, 10 or 15 years of experience in mind. So I applied to a lot of things, and then actually at Turicode, I stumbled upon them and I invited myself for a coffee. So it sounds very simple, but basically I said, look, I find it super interesting what you do. I would like to know more. Can I come by for a coffee?
This is something we always tell the people to do, to reach out to companies, employees. They feel like that could be an interesting company to work for and have a coffee. So I feel it's great to hear now that it is working. And I also like your approach about applying for all kind of jobs, even if you fit 50%, because I'm sure we both know that a lot of women feel like they need to fit 100%. It's a proven fact before they apply for a job. And I see that it gives you also the advantage of sticking out, of not fitting in, and then being curious about who is this person who applies and actually doesn't fit in.
And I think it's one of the advice I was given from two different people. One said, hey, look, you apply as soon as you fit about 50%. As soon as you feel like you could grow into the position, you apply. And the other person formulated it a bit different, but she said, you always have to ask yourself, what would Bob do? And Bob is your average guy who's not super great, but also not super bad. He's just the average. And if Bob would apply, you apply as well. And because I got the advice twice, I started having fun with it.
And that's what it should be. It should be fun finding a job. It should not be a hassle. It should be really fun finding a job. You're right about that. What is it that you love today about your job? You already mentioned it's this bridging the gap between tech and business. Is there anything else you say, hey, this really gives me the kick in the morning to get up and work?
Yeah, what I love, because our solution is not industry specific. I am talking to insurances, I'm talking to banks, but I'm also talking to archives and universities, and it's this change of scenery. And almost in every meeting I have with a client, I learn something new about the different industry, which is not a tech specific thing I like about my job, but I think it's really cool that I get to visit factories and have people explain to me how their system works. And it's something that is super interesting, this diversity in topic.
That's what I feel as well. And I feel especially tech is this common denominator between all the different industries, and you can apply it in all kind of industry if you're an expert or even a generalist in a certain tech area. Where do you see the future of tech? Where do you see yourself in the area you are in going, and where do you see other tech areas going in the future?
Yeah, so I think tech is going to be, I mean, it's already super important, but I think it will be even more important. But I also think that human qualities, like that you are a good listener and you can show empathy and stuff like that, will be more important, or will be valued higher in the future. And I think it makes sense to understand how tech works and make sure that you don't just follow it blindly, but you have you think critically, you try to understand why does what do what, and make sure you don't forget the humans in the mix.
So it's actually not the tech part that's so important. It's really the human part that it's important, or gain more importance in the tech world, right?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, we do make technology for humans. And I think that's something sometimes it gets a bit forgotten, but it's important.
So do you feel today the human factor has not been considered as much as it should be?
I think so. I mean, if Apple manages to make a health app without a period tracker, they obviously did not think of half of humanity. Stuff like that, right? It needs to be, the technology has a lot of great opportunities, but we need to make sure that it fits, or that there's an opportunity for everyone, and not just men and women, but also older people or people who have less access to technology and stuff like that. So I think it just making sure that you develop it for a specific person in mind, or a specific group of people in mind, and not just because, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should.
So what would you recommend then to our listeners if they want to venture out into the tech industry and finding a job there? Is there anything you would recommend how to approach, or which area they should look into?
I think you just have to try. As a preparation for this podcast, I wrote down, just try, go for a coffee. So everyone has an asset they can bring to the table. And I think it's important, you don't have to be the absolute super crack in something to be able to contribute to the conversation. Sometimes it helps if you are not the super technology person because you have a different point of view. I recommend to all my friends, make sure that you have some basic understanding of programming and coding, and then just do something that excites you. You will find your place in the tech world if you want to.
Do you believe there is a specific area which will grow faster, more intense than others? Like, for example, you're now in the AI area. Do you believe this is the big next thing, or do you see also other areas growing equally fast?
Well, I mean, AI is more of a toolbox. You can use it anywhere. It will grow. It will get better, I'm sure. But I also think all these smart things, which currently are not super smart usually, like these little helpers in your everyday life, I think that's an area which will grow.
So before we get to the end of this podcast, I would also like you to ask some speed questions. And you just answer what's on top of your mind. Who is your favorite female role model?
I think I would have to say Melinda Gates, because she stays true to her principle and does what she wants.
And what do you believe is your most important skill?
I think the ability to listen and the being able to translate between different styles of thinking. Because I mean, a software engineer thinks very differently from a business person.
Absolutely, yes. And the last one, you already given us a lot of advice, but maybe you have one best advice you were ever given to. Which one was it?
I don't know. I think it would go along the line of what I said about the applying. So don't underestimate yourself. Just do it. Just try. Because usually we sell ourselves short. So
absolutely. Thanks a lot for your time. It was very interesting listening to your story and your advices. Yeah, thanks for being in the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for tuning in today and listening to this inspiring talk on TechFace podcast. Want to be the first to know about the next episode or get first-hand access to our events? Join TechFace and sign up today on techface.ch. As a new member, you will get a free career coaching call and will always be the first to know about exciting events, news, and insights. We look forward to welcoming you as our valued member.